Hello, 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 and welcome into Coach's Corner. I am your host, Lucas Kochevar, as always, and we are back on a Wednesday evening, probably going to be a Thursday when you do listen to this, and we have college football week 1 to pick from. Now, I kind of teased it a little bit on Monday's Tuesday show about week 0 being a disaster. It was not good, but we look ahead to week 1. Week 0 was the warm-up round. Now we get the full entree. We're really going to kind of get into this. We're going to lock in. I have 15 picks to give out. Got some shaky reasoning, but got some really good reasonings. As frankly, there's a whole lot of, games on that we have to kind of pick through that we don't have any evidence to support us in. Normally you can kind of look at some of these games and pick through records and whatnot. But to start off the season, we're just taking a lot of blind guesses. But I am throwing 15 darts at you. We're going to get them correct, and we're going to do good. We're going to have a good weekend. But before we look ahead, I do have to say we will get into the NFC South. It is the last division in our NFL kind of preview series where we touch on, all the teams in the NFL. We have my Falcons that I kind of saved for last appropriately. We have the trashy Aints, we have the Baker Buccaneers, and we have the lowly Panthers. But we'll start right off out of the gate, college football week 1. So many great matchups happening. We have at noon, we have Georgia, we have Clemson in Mercedes-Benz Stadium here in Atlanta. Should be a really exciting game, hopefully, because we don't know what we're going to get from this Georgia offense. We have familiar faces in Carson Beck, Oscar Delp, Dylan Bell, Dominic Lovett. But there's some question marks we don't know. The running back room for Georgia, who's going to suit up on Saturday? Is the defense going to come as prepared as they should be? With Malachi Starks, Mikael Williams, CJ Allen. Is Clemson, is Kate Clemson not going to be complete ass? I mean, that's frankly just Clemson's question. And we go through the day, we have Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Miami, Florida. Sunday we have USC and LSU. So we have a lot of games to pick from here this weekend. So I hope that, whatever game you choose, if you choose to do all 12 hours, like I'm probably going to do, I hope you enjoy it because you only get week 1 once a year. And this is the time we get it here in college football. And I am super pumped for it. But the games start on Thursday. The games start, tomorrow. And we have a decent amount of games, a decent slate of games. And so let's get right into the picks. Let's go ahead and lock in. The first pick I do have is North Carolina -2 at Minnesota. Now, I know what you're thinking, Lucas. North Carolina just lost Drake May. Mac Brown's kind of been on a weird, FU tour during the offseason, kind of just flaunting how much power he really has because he's old and a legend. But, North Carolina lost a good bit over the offseason. But I look at Minnesota and PJ Fleck, and it's a team that I like. It's a team that I feel like probably should be at a better spot than they have been in previous years. They should have been building towards, I'd say, a crescendo here where they're just a better team than what they've produced. And they haven't done that. And they brought in a quarterback. They lost their quarterback last year. I think he's at Rutgers now. But, Minnesota's quarterback now is I believe he's a FCS transfer from, one of the schools out there, I think in the Midwest area. And we don't really know much about him. But North Carolina, they brought in Max Johnson. I believe his name is he's Brian Johnson's son. He played at LSU, kind of got banged up. Garrett Nussmeier took his spot. The rest is history. But he is in North Carolina now, and he's not a bad quarterback. And frankly, he just kind of got hit with injury bugs here and there. I think he was actually at Texas A&M too. Like, he kind of just kept getting hurt in weird situations where he couldn't really control. And because of that, I think, he's got something to prove this year. I think North Carolina is a quarterback-friendly offense. I think we've seen that with Sam Howell to Drake May and to Max Johnson here. I feel like he'll, get an easy look, an easy diet of, plays that won't be too hard to comprehend. And it'll be just enough to beat Minnesota here. And because, frankly, 2 points here is the spread. And if you have North Carolina winning the game, I would assume it's by a field goal at least, and that's what the spread is here. So really, this is a pick 'em to me. So for that reason, I picked North Carolina to win this game just because I don't think we know about Minnesota's quarterback. And, it's one of those situations where I feel like Virginia Tech did a similar thing when they brought in the Marshall transfer, like 2 year ago or something. He came in, he was supposed to be, on a bigger stage with a better roster around him. He performs, he's supposed to elevate his play too. But that didn't happen. Virginia Tech stuttered. They never really got it. And then Drones took over as quarterback. So I think it's a similar, case here where, Minnesota quarterback comes in, should be better than he is. He doesn't really live up, and they lose to, North Carolina here. So give me North Carolina. The next pick, one of my locks. I have 4 locks on the board here. Jacksonville State -2.5 against Coastal Carolina. And, it's one of those things. I like Coastal Carolina, but they've just lost too much over the years. Grayson McCall is gone. He is in North Carolina State now. He's in Raleigh, the same state, but, away from the Coastal Carolina group. They lost their head coach. I forgot where he went to, but he's not there anymore, from those really good Coastal Carolina teams. And Jacksonville State's coming off a year where they were really, really good. They were just really rock solid in the Sun Belt, or I believe it's Sun Belt. So they, just one of those teams where it's a Sun Belt team where they put in good amount of effort. They just were just good last year. And I think they were adjusting to the FBS level, but they did it so well that I can't imagine they fall off a little bit here. So, I have them winning this at home. This is kind of similar to the -2, where if you like them to win this game, this is a good spread to have. 2.5, you're basically just picking them to win by a field goal. And I'll gladly do that. The next game is also one of my locks, also on Thursday. North Dakota State at Colorado, the over 59.5. I have the over here. I love points here in this game because Shedeur Sanders, they're going to want to make a statement just because of all the noise that's happened over the offseason, how kind of nasty it's been for, Deion and company in Colorado for good reason. But they're going to want to come out and prove something. Travis Hunter on the other side, there's that FBS, FCS difference that you're going to have to account for. But still, I think that, that'll play in the offense's favor for Colorado. But not even just them. North Dakota State, obviously they're a powerhouse at the FCS level. I can't imagine that this Colorado defense has improved that much over the offseason. They were horrendous a year ago. I think they'll be bad again this year. I like the chances here. I don't think that Colorado secondary outside of Travis Hunter is anything to brag about. So for that reason, I like North Dakota State here to get some points. I like Colorado to get some points and hit the over there at 59.5. Now, teasing a little podcast here, Everything Must Go Over might release sooner than later, but we're still branding. That's your tease there. Michigan State versus FAU, another over. Smash it. This one is one of those reasonings where I said, not great reasoning here, but hey, the quarterback from Michigan State, Aiden Chiles, I believe is his name. He's a transfer from Oregon State. He came over with Jonathan Smith, who was at Oregon State. He's at Michigan State now. They are playing FAU at home. The over is 45 here, so not a big number. A lot of college overs kind of sit in the 50 to 54 range. 45 is 10 points under that 54 area. So for that reason, I think there's a good chance that this goes over. Michigan State, if they cover their bases, it's a new offense, but this quarterback I think should be exciting. He was very close to starting, over DJ Ukulele at Oregon State. He didn't quite get there, but fresh start. He told me to bet the over in his press conference one of these weeks where he was basically, hey, if you're betting on us, bet the over. And I was like, okay, guy, I respect it. So give me Michigan State here. Next game, this might be a little bit of a stretch. This is probably my riskiest pick, so this one I'd be cautious about, but I like it still. Vanderbilt plus 13.5 at Virginia Tech. Now, at Virginia Tech terrifies me there. But there's a lot of hype around Virginia Tech to be a sleeper team in the ACC. And although I think they'll be better than what they have been, in the post-Beamer era, I don't think Virginia Tech's going to be quite there yet to start off the year. I think Vanderbilt has an interesting quarterback situation where I think they'll be in this game because of that. Because both quarterbacks, I think, are actually pretty good. Like, it's just one of those things. One guy has to play and one guy can't. Diego Paiva, I believe, is there. And, I can't remember their other quarterback, but he's another, athletic, super, kind of rangy athlete. I think he's a good player. So I think their offense will be surprisingly good in this game. And I just can't see this game getting 13 and a half away from them. I don't think Virginia Tech will blow them out of the water, basically, to start off this year. If this is Virginia Tech midseason, maybe they do, but week one, I'm not buying it. Give me Vanderbilt to at least cover. Maybe not win, but to cover 13 and a half. Next game is something of, I'd say, an indictment game for both teams, I think. And it is West Virginia. I have them plus 8.5 against Penn State. They are at home, so it's not in Beaver Stadium. But frankly, I think this is going to tell us a lot about both of these teams. I think I will be right about it. Where West Virginia will be a good team. West Virginia could be a sleeper team in the Big 12, where I think a lot of people are picking that because Garrett Green is a really good quarterback for the Mountaineers there. I like West Virginia here. I just maybe to keep it close at least, but really this is also me betting against Penn State. If you've listened to the podcast, I've been very against Penn State in the past 2 years. I thought Drew Aller would have been a lot better than he is. He's not really a dynamic quarterback. He's just a very okay to bad quarterback. And that's kind of been Penn State's recipe since Trace McSorley is just mid to not good quarterback play, but they're just good enough consistently to be starters. I don't think James Franklin gets up for big games, and this is a big game. Just week one, against another Power 4 team, a team that will be probably, mid to close to top 25 team here. You have to come out and make a statement, and I feel like James Franklin never does that. He lost a couple players, to the draft. Being a plus 8.5, I think the touchdown is just very generous for Penn State here. I'm not buying it. Give me West Virginia, like I said. Another pick that I have that is a lock. This is one of my 4 locks. This is the third one out of the 4. South Dakota State traveling to Stillwater to take on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. I have the over 54.5. Now, this is one of those lines where I think Vegas just didn't really know what to do with it, because I think they have this game very close in the point spread where it is, it's kind of a rat line for people to take South Dakota State. Now, Oklahoma State should be really good this year. A lot of people are picking them to win the Big 12 with Ollie Gordon at running back. Alan Bowman's a 14th year senior, it feels like. And, this is just one of those early upset picks where, South Dakota State's one of those powerhouse FCS schools, but are they going to really go on the road here and beat a top 12 team or a top, 15 team? I don't think so. But one thing I do think they'll do is score points. I think they'll get us, kind of a similar number to where I thought, the Montana State New Mexico game, the way that game went, I can see that happening similarly here, where basically Oklahoma State covers a lot of the points, but South Dakota State does enough, either late in the game or, garbage time where they score points too and get us their share of the over here. I do like this one to go over. 54.5 for a Big 12 team just feels really low. Next pick, which one I love, but I don't have it as a lock, Colorado State at Texas. I think this will just be a good game, frankly, in general, but the over 60.5. Now, Texas is going to have a lot of pressure on them this year just because of how they played last year. They made it to the playoff finally. Quinn Ewers is back as a senior. You do have Arch Manning looming in the background. You lost a lot of your playmakers on offense, running back, both receivers, but you brought in Isaiah Bond from Alabama. Now, the running back situation is shaky because they do have to figure out who's going to be the back since, running backs 1 and 2 both are out for the year. But, Texas still, it's one of those things. Steve Sarkisian, you're the offensive guy. You're like basically the premier offensive guy in this, country, because you look at around, Kirby Smart's defense, Dan Lanning's defense, Ryan Day. I don't think people love Ryan Day right now. So you're the offensive guy. So we'll have to see whether or not you can live up to that name here with the over 60.5, but I think they will. I think Colorado State's defense just isn't, they're a very mediocre Mountain West team that led up a lot of points to Colorado. Texas should, blow them out of the water. But I say that Colorado State does have a quarterback that's coming back from his, a productive last year, where I kind of was saying in the offseason that maybe he could have gotten an NIL deal elsewhere, but he stayed at Colorado State. I don't know how much I believe that, but regardless, I think they'll put up enough points just because I also think Texas has lost a good bit of their defense, the couple noteworthy guys on the defensive line. So I think they'll be adjusting. So Colorado State's offense should be able to get just enough to get us that over. Moving on, we have another one of my locks. It is UTSA, Texas San Antonio, beating Kennesaw State by 25. Yes, UTSA is minus 25 against Kennesaw State in their FBS debut. This isn't me saying that I love UTSA, and shout out to my buddy Cooper, but I like you guys to win this game. I like them, to do it in a good fashion, but mainly it's because this is Kennesaw State's first game at Division I football, and UTSA has not been a slouch in previous years. Now they are introducing a new quarterback, or at least a new full-time starter now that Frank Harris is finally gone, but I don't think that'll matter. UTSA should have talent all over. They are one of those group of 5 teams I could see sneaking into the playoffs, whether it's this year or in the near future. Kennesaw State, it's just you got to take your licks early when you're converting from Division II to Division I. This is just it's kind of like a ceremony. You got to take the lumps early on, and I think this is just a tough team to open up with as your first FBS team in Conference USA. So give me UTSA there. Next game, one of the notable ones I mentioned earlier, Miami of Florida taking on the Florida Gators. Now, I have Miami minus 2.5 here, and this is one of those lines. Once again, it's just basically a pick 'em to me. It's can Miami win by a field goal in the Swamp? It's a little bit difficult, but I'm decently high on Miami this year. I think they will be a top 15 team by season ends, and I just think that's an indictment on what Cam Ward brings to this team because Tyler Van Dyke, I liked him. I think he wore out his welcome, especially at the end there in Miami, and I think it was just a mess. Cam Ward, I feel like brings a fresh, new energy to this team, and Mario Cristobal, I think, is a good coach. I don't get the hot seat rumors. I think you're paying him a lot of money. He's in like year 2 of this thing, so give him time. I think they beat Florida here on the road, and just because I also don't believe in Graham Mertz and Florida, the Swamp gets this reputation because I feel like it has such a great name, the Swamp, and you get Tom Petty and you get the Chomp. But I don't think Florida has that home field advantage that they think they do have because, you've seen Utah go in there and although they didn't win, they were there until the end. LSU, I believe, beat them there. Tennessee's gone in. Kentucky, all the SEC schools that they should beat when they come to the Swamp, they haven't done it. And because, frankly, just the team hasn't been that good. Graham Mertz hasn't been that good. So I don't know if they'll have a lot to cheer about here as Miami, I think, pulls off the road. I don't want to say upset because they're a favorite, but the road win here. So I think I got the Canes. Moving on, Boise State traveling to Statesboro, Georgia to take on Georgia Southern. I have the over 56.5 here. Georgia Southern under Clay Helton has kind of just been one of those teams I pencil them in as an over team because they're not running that garbage triple option. They're passing the ball downfield. I think they are but they're bringing back a kid who started games for them last year. He should be solid. Boise State, one of those teams that also is kind of flirting with being a Power 12 playoff team or a Group of 5 playoff team. Boise State, like I said, one good running back. Typically, they have good rosters. They should be one of the best teams in the Mountain West. I think they will score points against the Georgia Southern defense that I don't know if Georgia Southern has had a good defense in the couple of years with Clay Helton. So give me that over there. This one's going to make you laugh a little bit. Tarleton State plus 26 at Baylor. Now, this might be my biggest long shot of the college football season, just because Tarleton State will probably never make its way onto my sheet ever again. But they played in week 0. They beat McNeese in week 0, and I saw a really good touchdown pass from one of their quarterbacks to the wide receiver score it was like a 25-yarder. And frankly, it's not just because I saw that. It's probably 75% that I saw that touchdown. But I also don't think Baylor will have a good year. I think this will be the down year for Baylor. Dave Aranda, I think, has gotten a little bit of slack here because he had that really good season. I think he'll struggle this year. I don't think Baylor will come out of the gate strong. They might limp their way to a bowl, but I'm just not high on them this year. And a plus 26 is a lot of points. Give me Tarleton State to keep it close. keep it within the 26. Maybe I'll say that. Next game, Nevada at Troy, the over 44.5. I bet the under last year with Nevada, or no, did I bet the over or the under? Either way, I had Nevada on my card last week. That was a loser bet, but they put up points. Nevada did their part. It was an over. They didn't get there. Nevada, I think they showed me last week they can score with good teams. So I think playing against Troy won't be that much of a step up from SMU. It'll probably be a step down. But Troy is still a really quality team. I think Troy will also put up points here. I like this one to go over. I think, this could also be one of those teams where Troy just blows them out of the water like 38-7, and we get there. So give me the 44.5 here. I like that bet a lot. This is one I changed just based off of, I thought about it like a second longer. I like Notre Dame. I like Marcus Freeman. I think he's got a lot of good stuff going on in Notre Dame. It's one of those weird things where typically you don't like Notre Dame teams, but I like him. Give me Texas A&M, however, -3 against Notre Dame. Frankly, I picked Notre Dame for all those reasons, but when you really think about this game, Notre Dame has to travel to Kyle Field in Texas A&M. They have to play Mike Elko, who I think is a really, really good coach, and will have Texas A&M head in the right direction. His former quarterback is Notre Dame's quarterback. Riley Leonard played at Duke. Mike Elko was there last year. He's very familiar with Leonard, so I think he'll scheme up a good defensive plan for him. He's a good offensive guy. So just everything kind of tells you to take Texas A&M here, and that -3, I think this is a tough game where that, basically could end as a push, but it's one of those things. I can't bet on Notre Dame. I can't tell you that's a good way to go. Just there's too much familiarity between Leonard and Elko, in my opinion, for this game to, be in Notre Dame's favor to win outright. But give me Texas A&M -3. And then our last pick, a pick that I think will be a fun game to look at late in the night. New Mexico at Arizona over 58.5. Now, this goes back to another thing where basically I saw the team last week, so I trust them. But New Mexico, they scored a much better clip than I thought they would with I gave you the scenario last week. It's a sophomore quarterback in his first real action, like true starting action, a first-year head coach. But they scored the ball well. It's just their defense, gave up too many big plays at the end there, and they lost. But I like their offense to score points. Arizona, it's just one of those things where last year they were so good to me. They were returning a lot of those players, and they have perhaps the best wide receiver in college football that no one's talking about, and they could be a Big 12 winner as well. So I like Arizona to come out strong and just put a good old-fashioned butt whooping on New Mexico, but New Mexico will get their licks in, and they get us the over. Like I said, it is at 58.5. So I say all that to say, I'm going to have to go through the NFC South here fairly quickly, but there's not a whole lot to say. The Panthers, it can't get any worse, can it? It was a disaster last year. Bryce Young wasn't what you wanted. You have a new head coach in Dave Canales, the former Tampa Bay offensive coordinator. We'll talk about him in a moment with the Buccaneers more so. But frankly, all Carolina needs this year, they don't need anything, but they need to show that Bryce Young and the new head coach will mesh together. There's no other reason to really watch this team. The skill positions, very undesirable. Jonathan Brooks is a rookie out of Texas coming off an ACL tear. Xavier Leggett's probably the third receiver behind Adam Thielen and Deontay Johnson. The offensive line has been horrendous, even with a guy you drafted 2 years ago. So the Panthers just hope that Bryce Young can stay upright, hope that he can give you a full season of quality, just show you something, and then you can build from there next season, but the Panthers will not be great. And then the Saints, if there's a bet for Dennis Allen being the first head coach fired, I would slam it. It's probably minus money, frankly, because he stinks, but he's just, I'm going to be sick, but it's a good roster. It's got a lot of really talented players around it, but there's issues because the tackle position, you have a rookie, and then you have a former first-round pick who absolutely sucks ass in Trevor Penning, so that's tough. Derek Carr is hanging on by a thread as a starter in the NFL. was banged up last year in scenarios, but even when he did play healthy, it wasn't good. So I think this will be a season where, they'll regret keeping Dennis Allen and he'll be fired swiftly. But like I said, I think they have the pieces in place, and if they can figure out a quarterback in the next couple years, then maybe the Saints can come back to contending. But right now, they just scream 6 wins, 5 wins, 7 wins, about around that range, where they're not the bottom of the barrel, but they're not a playoff team. Then you go to the one playoff team from last year that was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They really just kind of have questions about their coaching because Todd Bowles doesn't have Dave Canales anymore. Like I said, he's in Carolina. He was a bright young star, helped Baker Mayfield land on his feet. Is Baker going to turn into old Baker, or is he going to be the guy we saw last year and really kind of lead this team? A good offense with good weapons, a great offensive line, I think. I don't know. This is one of those teams I could see the Buccaneers sneaking in the playoffs where we're like, you know what? They didn't need to win the division. They just quietly won 9 games and snuck in as the 7th or 6th seed, Not a bad team. A lot of the same tools from last year, but can they repeat the success without Canales? I don't know. And then my team that I'm going to pick here to win the NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons. Now, they're an offensive-led team that is just praying that their defense holds on by a thread because of 2 additions they made, Justin Simmons and Matthew Judon, 2 high-quality players on that defense, but can they come in quickly? Will they make enough of a difference to really help this defense at least bend, not break? Raheem Morris brings just a much better energy to this team. It's the first time in a long time I've been excited for the Falcons. I'm pumped to see what this offense can do. I'm pumped to see what Kirk Cousins can, lead here. Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London have to be one of the best exciting trios that you have on a team. And frankly, if all 3 of those guys aren't at least I'd say Pro Bowl level this year, I think something went wrong. Or at least 2 out of the 3, I think something went wrong. If 2 out of the 3 are not considered as staples in this league as true number 1 threats for their team. Bijan Robinson should be a top 5 running back. Kyle Pitts should be, the way we've kind of hoped he would develop is be a top 5 receiving tight end. And Drake London just at least be a Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver. And I know Pro Bowl doesn't mean a lot, but maybe just an actual Pro Bowl receiver, not just a, hey, you were the 14th replacement receiver. No, I think Drake London should have a very good year. So this is a big year for the Falcons. We're going to see what happens. I think they kind of push their chips all in while also looking to the future with Michael Penix. But this year, I think, will be a big year for a lot of, the upper front office staff. If it goes bad this year and they don't make the playoffs, it's hard to keep those guys around. But that'll do it for the NFC South preview. We locked that up. We finished up the NFL previews. We'll probably touch on a more league-wide, prediction base next week. But until then, let's have a great week 1. Let's have a productive, money-winning week 1, and we will, come back. Hopefully, not licking our wounds. We'll be celebrating with all the cash that we made. But until then, see you guys next week. I am your host, Lucas Kochevar. As always, make sure you like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff that helps get the podcast out there. Everything must go over. Look forward to that maybe in the near future. So with all that being said, I will see you guys once again next week.